Episode 2 of Gachiakuta came out today, and it was trash. Dare I say, garbage even? You see what I did there? Yeah, I made the same joke everyone else is making. I know, I'm pretty funny. Come on, clap it up for me. Let's go. Let me hear the claps. But anyhow, this episode was actually really good. If you watched my first video on this, on episode 1, you would know the main thing I wanted to see was the power system that everyone is talking about. And, well, this episode introduced the power system. And, honestly, I can see why there was hype behind this now. It seems pretty unique and actually very cool. But before we get into the actual episode itself, I have to say this, or some people will probably get mad at me. This video will obviously contain spoilers for episode 2 of Gachiakuta. I don't know why you'd click on this video if you cared about that, but just putting it out there. The episode begins right where we left off last time, with Rudo entering the pit and seeing these giant trash monsters. But in this episode, they start running the fade, and Rudo starts fighting them. But he's obviously overpowered as they're nasty, stinky trash monsters. But just before he's about to give up, he remembers his final conversation with Regto, and remembers the guy who killed him, remembers that he wants to kill this son of a bitch. So with that, he just unlocks like Super Saiyan basically, and starts kicking these monsters' asses. This is all happening while some mysterious person in the distance looks on in shock, watching Rudo start to fight these monsters. But courage alone is not enough to beat these monsters, so the mysterious figure swoops in and saves Rudo. Rudo begins asking this guy some questions, and this dude's like, yo, shut up. Yo, shut up. Rudo's not shutting up. He's a complete chatterbox. This guy keeps telling him to shut up. Eventually, he takes off his mask and screams at him to shut up. And this completely awakens like hundreds of these monsters. Well, not hundreds, but I'd say at least 20 of them. But this guy's umbrella turns into a weapon, and he starts slaying them all and stops them from regenerating, as they're just trash. When Rudo was fighting them, they were able to collect more trash and become these even bigger trash monsters, but with his special weapon, they can't do that. They are forever dead. But after that, Rudo begins asking this guy questions and showing his true conviction to go back up to the surface and kill the guy who killed Regto. And seeing this, Engine, his name's Engine, tells him his name and tells him that he is a part of the cleaners, the trash cleaners. Of course, Rudo wants to know more than this guy's name, but Engine seems to be into BDSM a little too much, as he chains him up. Rudo obviously is not like being chained up and dragged around, but Engine brings him to the end of this road and throws him to these very nice looking people. These people start asking Rudo questions like, yo, are you really a spherite? We've never seen a spherite alive before. And Rudo's like, yeah, I guess. And they're treating him very nice. They even say, hey, let's get these chains off this nice young man, only to chain him up even harder and gag him. These people of the ground, or the pit, begin to tell Rudo how much they hate him, how they hate the Spherites for throwing all their trash down to the ground, and how it completely corrupted this land. Apparently, they used to have nice houses, nice soil, but it turned it all toxic and made the air disgusting fumes where they can't even really breathe without these special masks. They even start torturing Rudo by force-feeding him decayed meat and veggies, just literal scraps of food. But Rudo is a trash man, as we've seen in the first episode. He bites off the guy's fingers and begins to eat that food like it's a 5-star meal, saying it's not trash. With that, Rudo begins to remember a conversation that he had with Regto years ago. In that conversation, him and Regto were talking about how if you treat an inanimate object with enough care, eventually a soul will begin to inhabit it. And with that, his chains begin to turn red and spiky, and he can then control them and starts to attack these pit guys. The pit people are freaking out, like, hey, what? A spherite can do this too? They then explain how a giver is useless without their item that they can control, and they knock the chain out of his hand, but Rudo, he grabs a tire and turns it into a spike and smashes the guy's face in. And that freaks them out even more. They're like, what? A giver who can control more than one item? And Engine is actually watching in the distance and also freaks the fuck out. And just before Rudo is about to kill the last guy, Engine comes out of nowhere and stops him from doing that. And Rudo asks him, yo, what the hell did I just do? Engine then apologizes to Rudo for not helping him, but he said he had to make sure his power was the real deal. Now with that wraps up this episode. Straight trash. Now, Obviously, I mean peak. So this episode was really the true introduction, I think, into the series. I mean, obviously the first episode was, but this one actually gives you a sense of what the rest of the world is going to be like, or the rest of the anime is going to be like. We finally got to see the power system. Now, we didn't get to see much of it, of course, but that was the main thing I've heard people talk about this anime, or this manga for. Everyone's like, yo, Gachiakuta is completely changing the game with his power system. And I'm not going to lie, after watching this episode, it's just the beginning, of course. Like, we're just seeing the groundwork of it. We don't even really know how it works yet fully, but it seems pretty badass. So basically, from my understanding so far, these people that have powers are called givers. And basically, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, it seems that if they treat a singular item with enough care, like let's say this water bottle, this vitamin D, if you treat it with enough care, eventually a soul per se, not exactly, I mean obviously I don't think it's a real soul inhabiting it, but if you treat the item with enough care, you can then eventually manipulate it and use it as a weapon, or not, maybe not as a weapon, maybe you can do other things than fight with it, but you can control it and manipulate it. And typically it seems that givers can only give or use one item, but Rudo seems to be special, and I assume that's because of his gloves. It seems that his giving ability is his gloves, and since he's a trash man, anything and any trash that he touches, he can then use, because he treats it all with a lot of care. I think that's the gist of it. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm like 95% sure that's how the powers work, or at least that's how Rudo's powers work. Other than that, there's not much to theorize on with this episode. It just introduced the pit, and this pit, it seems pretty similar, like not the trash aspect, but like the way of life, kind of like Borderlands. Like these people, like the quote unquote nice guys. Well, obviously they weren't nice, but they kind of looked like, God, I'm forgetting his name, but the one dude from Borderlands, and I thought that was kind of funny. I do have one theory, though, based upon that episode, because it seems that it was once a normal civilization down there, and I'm thinking, since there's people above them now, and they call them the Spherites, the Spheres, I think maybe it was a group of rich people, like a very, very, very wealthy group, and they didn't like living with a bunch of other normal people, so they moved, they like built a sphere above and then live on top of the sphere. And that brings up the problem, though. What about the tribe folks? Because why would the tribes folks be with the Spherites, the super rich people? Well, I have another theory with that. I think the tribes folk maybe were originally Spherites as well, or not Spherites, but like the rich version of them. I forgot what they're called now. But something maybe happened, maybe like a split in government or something, that then sent them to like the half, but they aren't so bad that they won't send them all down to the pit. I don't know. I think something like that, maybe. Really, I'm just talking out my ass. I have no clue, but I think that's how it's going so far. Also, in the comments, if I'm wrong, you can tell me that I'm wrong on that, because, I mean, I don't really care if you tell me if I'm wrong, but don't tell me what it is exactly, because I want to watch the anime and not have a huge spoiler. Anyhow, it's still fuck Chiwa to the day we die, and with that wraps up this video. I don't got much else to add, but please, for me, please subscribe, like, and turn on that noti bell. With that wraps up this video. Alright, I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.